bit about relationships. You know, our relationships can be improved when we learn certain tools. And one of those is truth, specifically finding the truth in what people are saying. Now, this is a fundamental principle for Christians, the truth, but it's not only a spiritual tool, it's also a communication one. Although it can be very confusing when you attempt to use this tool in communication. One really common mistake is trying to see truth from the other person's perspective. Like, well, you know, I can see you feel that way. Or, you know, maybe from your angle it looks like that. Why do you think that would be a mistake? Well, it's because truth is not relative. Nope. Truth is truth. That's it. Unlike what sci-fi says and would have us believe, there's really only one reality, only one universe. Now, we all can have different views of that reality, but that's not relative. And people who believe in relativity, they kind of say, well, you know, your perception, belief kind of changes based on your beliefs and your reality. But you can't have two opposing theories both be true. For example, you can't believe both in like reincarnation and the biblical state of the dead at the same time. No matter how flexible we'd like to be and accepting of others, they're just incompatible. So that said, there are many hidden gems in life that require some deep digging and a willingness to see the truth. Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 13 that we see through a glass darkly. In other words, we don't always have all the answers or the whole perspective. So let me back up a bit. Well, why is this even important? Well, this idea of finding the truth in what someone is saying is based on the disarming technique as described by Dr. Burns in his book, Feeling Good Together. It's part of the 5 secrets of effective communication that he's developed. And he has many free resources for mental health and relationships on his website, feelinggood.com. I encourage you also to get his book, Feeling Good Together, because it's really got a lot of great tools. So finding common ground is also the foundation of a basic connection as described by my favorite author, Ellen White. And it does many things to improve your relationships. First, it forces you to listen. I mean, really listen, to find the message beyond the words. Secondly, it requires you to be selfless. I mean, that's a huge priority for us as Christians. We need to die to self so we're not being defensive and taking things personally. Rather, we put ourselves in the other person's shoes. And thirdly, because truth is not relative, when we're trying to find the truth, it will help us to see the facts and not get lost in the story, whether that's our story or our perception of those facts or the other person's. And this helps the person feel really understood, and it usually diffuses anger and volatile situations. Okay, so now we know it's important. How do we apply this technique of finding the truth in what people are saying? Well, first, like I mentioned, we have to be willing to put in the effort. Looking for truth is not easy because we don't want to pretend we agree with error. We don't want to twist and manipulate things just to make it compatible. And we don't want to affirm error. You know, sometimes it feels like if we agree with someone, we're encouraging them, even though they might be wrong. So the important thing to remember is most of the time there are threads of truth winding through seemingly opposite concepts. And beyond that, the person who we're talking to is generally trying to tell us something. For example, let's do an example. A parent has to cancel a visit with their child's playmate because they have to work late that day. And in response, the child says to the parent, "It's so unfair, you don't love me." Now, finding the truth can be really hard for that parent. Often they've poured their heart into their children, and this statement can hurt, really hurt. But finding the truth can be done when we prayerfully surrender to God's love. So, what is this child really trying to say? I mean, do they really think the parent doesn't love them? No, of course not. They're using that to get the parent's attention. They're lashing out because they're angry. Now, as a Christian parent, we want to correct this unchristlike attitude in our child. But in this moment, do you think the child will learn the character lesson better by a lecture or by example? Yeah, obviously by example for sure. So the parent could respond something like this. Betty, I know you really wanted to play with your friend. And you're right, my work is a priority. I can imagine you feel really upset and sad. And I feel really sad too. I also feel hurt because I do love you. Can you tell me more how you're feeling? So let's unpack this. First of all, the parent is now acknowledging the message behind the words, that the child is hurt and sad and upset, and maybe feeling other things as well that we don't necessarily know of. Maybe they had planned some surprise to give to their friend. We don't always know what's going through our children's minds, and so, or somebody else's mind. I'm just using a parent-child example here. But we attempt to guess, and then we ask a question to see if the person will confirm or maybe tell us what really they were feeling. So it's important to that acknowledgement. So, and then always kind of ending with a question to draw the person in and tell you more about what they're going through. Now, often this response will calm the child down, and they will actually speak nicer without you actually telling them to calm down and speak nice. Trust me, this really works. Over and over, I have seen it work. So, you know, even though you might know it works, or you maybe don't know it works because you're just listening to this YouTube video and you don't know me from a hole in the wall, so what am I saying? And I'm hoping you'll go practice this and find out that it really is true. Although it takes work for it to practice. In fact, you'll have to practice, practice, practice. And it requires prayer and a willingness to dig deep. And that means you might come up with an answer for the previous conversation like 3 days ago. And that's okay, because you learn from that, even if you're not going to see that person again. Often we do. So it's just wonderful to practice, because you'll be able to use this in the future as you get the skills. Writing works really well. It's great if you write down what the person said and then try and come up with that message behind the meaning behind the message. I find having conversations with myself in the shower is quite helpful. And then I just kind of go over that several times to try and really embrace what that person might be saying. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe, send me suggestions for topics. I welcome comments and criticisms, but please be kind, because we're all real people with real problems, real feelings, and real lives.